Hello everyone, and welcome to the Week I Review. My name is kubas-meyer, and today I want to talk about a video game. GRIS, or GRIS. It's French. Whatever. GRIS is an indie puzzle-ish platformer released this past Friday for the Nintendo Switch and PC. I love indie puzzle-ish platformers, and I love my Switch. With the recent release of Super Smash Bros., I am putting a whole lot more hours onto this thing than I have in a while. It really is an amazing system, but it's one that I've rarely used in docked mode. I've played a few hours of Zelda, Mario, Smash Bros, etc. on my TV, but most of the time, even at home, I play handheld. GRIS changed this. Excepting a couple of minutes I spent to prove the point, I played the entire 4 or so hour experience on my TV, because this game, though it is on the Switch, isn't made for the Switch. It would be just as at home and probably more so on a PS4 or Xbox One, where it could run at higher frame rates and resolutions and maybe a little HDR thrown in for good measure. It's not a game to play on the go. It's one to sit with and contemplate. Let me back up. You should buy GRIS. It is both fascinating and very good. I'm not going to be showing much footage from it because any given image is a spoiler. This is especially true as the nature of the game's milestones become clear. You are returning color to a world of gray, which sounds an awful lot like gris because gris is the French word for gray. Crazy. Anyway, with each color you add, the world becomes even more beautiful. I paused so many times in awe of GRIS imagery. I would spend at least $55 for a coffee table book of moments from the game. I may spend more than that getting fine art prints of screen caps to hang on my wall. So I'll show a little bit when it's absolutely necessary to illustrate the point, but the less you see before you play, the more I think you will get from each new moment. And just buy it. The presentation of GRIS imagery is fascinating because the camera itself is fascinating, performing this high-wire balancing act of practicality and cinema. Though locked firmly at a 90-degree angle from the side of your character's face, its placement in space is constantly changing along all three axes. At times, you are the center of attention. It swoops in to be there right beside you. More typically, you remain at the center of attention, but the camera has pulled back to reveal more of the world itself. Those sparse, beautifully rendered lines, and eventually their subtle but distinct colorations. You take it all in, and this is the cinematic. Or you're not at the center at all. The level design stands at the forefront as you are tasked with a puzzle that takes up a space many, many, many times your size, and you must see the entirety of the thing in order to understand it. This is the practical. It is also when portable mode becomes effectively impossible. Even on a TV of relatively substantial size, you are tiny, and on at least 2 occasions on a 50-inch TV, I found myself lost on the screen and needed to move the analog stick a bit to find the black blob of motion. The camera moves smoothly in and out, never actually cutting, which can feel in turn epic and exhausting, depending on how dynamic it feels like being at a given moment. But the important fact imparted by this constant expand and contract is that you will always see everything that you need to see in a given moment. Sometimes more, but never less, which is pleasantly reassuring. Play is simple. Stick or pad moves, B jumps, A breathes. Eventually, Y does something too, and X remains unused. They do what you ask of them when you ask it. Here and there, something might not respond exactly as you might like, mostly in the water, but those moments are fleeting. On the lovely Switch Pro controller, which is basically a requirement since, again, TV, everything feels quite nice. At first glance, GRIS probably appears a bit like a 2D journey with a drained color palette, but as I said in my alternate title, I think it's akin to something a bit more recent. Celeste, which was released earlier in the year on a bunch of platforms, including the Switch, is a wonderful, brutal little 2D platformer. It tells the story of Madeline, who climbs a mountain to face her own inner demons, those demons also being herself. Madeline's anxiety and fears manifest themselves in increasingly torturous ways. It is not subtle, but it is effective and lovely. It's a unique subject matter for a game in general, and particularly a game of its sort. It's a game in which you will die hundreds or thousands of times climbing up this mountain to see your pain through. Now remove the spikes, and beneath that you find GRIS. It's not just that GRIS lacks overt danger or an actual fail state. It's that GRIS is told in images rather than words. You know that the unnamed girl you are controlling is dealing with the fallout of something, and you help her to come to terms with that and put the pieces back together. But the question of what exactly has broken is an open one. And it's one on which you can project your own damage. Celeste tells you what Madeline is feeling and feeling about, and perhaps you feel it vicariously through her. GRIS tells you nothing beyond the fact that you press A and she takes a breath. But the breath is short, clearly intended to be something more. And so you think about that. You don't intentionally press A very often, but when you do, it gives you pause. And you think about it some more. And you wonder what she is trying to do. And you try to figure it out. Is it really just taking a breath? Does she want to talk? I called it the press A to emote button for a little while because it seemed almost like she wanted to cry. In fact, the first time I pressed the A button, she collapsed. This before she'd even picked up the ability to jump. And so you fill in the gaps with the pains that you know, the times that you were unable to do anything but take a short breath. This girl doesn't have a name or a voice, but she is struggling to cope with something. And even if you are never able to explicitly understand what it is, you feel that pain that she is feeling, and you have to help her. And you want to help her because you felt it too. 8.9 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. It's kind of odd that I haven't reviewed a video game yet on this channel. There have been a couple of times when I almost did, but other things got in the way. I had other thoughts of what I would have done this week, and then GRIS came out, and it's really an amazing game. I had more to say, but I cut out a lot because I didn't think any of it mattered. If you enjoyed this video, that is awesome. If you didn't, I'm sorry. If you would like to see more, please subscribe. I would appreciate that. I hope to see you next week.